Hey guys, I'm Tammy. Welcome back to Happily Home Cooking. It is officially fall, and you know what that means. It's pumpkin spice season. Are you a pumpkin spice fan? I am officially on the pumpkin spice bandwagon. I was not for the longest time. I hated anything with pumpkin in it. However, I have changed my tune. Oh yeah. So the other day I got a craving for a pumpkin spice cake, kind of out of the blue. I've never even had pumpkin spice cake before. So I went to one of my favorite sites to get recipes from, Sally's Baking Addiction. She had a delicious looking recipe. I made it exactly as written and it turned out amazing. Amazing. I didn't change a single thing from that recipe, and that's exactly what I'm gonna show you today. We're gonna make her recipe. I'm gonna show you how easy it is to make. This is one of the easiest cakes ever. We're doing a simple sheet cake with a delicious cream cheese frosting. It's moist, it has the perfect balance of the pumpkin and the pumpkin spice and sweetness. So shout out to Sally's Baking Addiction for all of your amazing recipes. All right, now before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our Happily Home Cooking channel where we share all of our family's favorite recipes like this one now is. And then come on into the kitchen with me and I'll show you how easy it is to make this pumpkin spice cake with cream cheese frosting. All right, so first thing we'll do is preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then in a medium mixing bowl, we will combine our dry ingredients, starting with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Always make sure when you're baking that when you're measuring your flour, you're spooning it in loosely into your measuring cup and then leveling it off. We don't want to pack the flour in. Next, we're adding 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I don't know why on some of the brands of baking powder they don't give it that nice little leveling edge, so I just go with the old shake and eyeball it method. It's close enough, it works just fine. Next we'll add 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And with the seasonings and spices, it doesn't need to be exact like the flour measurements do, so I'm just going to eyeball it so I don't have to dirty another measuring spoon. There's my half, that is close enough. And now our pumpkin spice. We're adding 2 teaspoons. I got this giant bottle of pumpkin spice at Costco, and it is much, much more economical than those little itty bitty tiny bottles you'll find at the grocery store. Pumpkin spice is actually mostly cinnamon, along with some other spices like nutmeg, ginger, allspice, and clove. All right, now we'll just combine all of our dry ingredients together so all of those seasonings and leavening agents are all nice and evenly distributed. And bada bing, bada boom, that's it. Moving on to our wet ingredients now. So in a larger mixing bowl, we are going to start with our eggs. We are using 4 large eggs for this cake recipe. I will speed this part up a little bit and spare you the pain of watching me crack eggs so slowly. All right, now we will add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 1 cup of packed brown sugar. And yes, I know sugars are not wet ingredients, but I like to mix them into the wet ingredients for better distribution and making sure they are fully dissolved. Now we'll add 1 cup of oil. Sally's recipe calls for canola or vegetable oil. I'm using avocado oil, which is also another great neutral oil, which actually has a lot of health benefits. Next up, we'll add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And finally, our pumpkin. this recipe calls for a 15-ounce can of pumpkin. I buy these giant 29-ounce cans of pumpkin, so I'm using about half the can, which is about 1.5 cups, or you can measure this out using a kitchen scale. I just find these larger cans to be much more economical than the little small cans, and I always find a use for the leftover pumpkin, whether it be another pumpkin recipe like our pumpkin spice cinnamon rolls or throwing it into a pumpkin spice protein shake. Lots of good uses for this stuff. Alright, so now it is time to combine all of our wet ingredients together. So we're just going to use a whisk, just whisk this together by hand, nothing fancy. You do not need to use a mixer for this part. It literally takes 2 minutes to do this by hand. I actually find recipes like this very relaxing. There's something about the mixing it by hand that just kind of reminds me of how, my grandmother would bake, and I just find it very relaxing. No loud mixers, no time crunch of other recipes of things on the stove. Just kicking back, stirring up my cake mix, enjoying my day. I think recipes like this are great for beginner bakers as well because it's just really so simple. You don't need to use any fancy tools, right? So this is a great recipe for anyone who thinks that they cannot bake. You can give this one a try. So now we just throw our dry ingredients into our wet ingredients and we'll stir this up just enough to make sure that everything is moist and combined. Alright, so that is looking good. Our batter is all ready to go. This is going to make the smoothest, creamiest cake you have ever had. So we'll be baking this in a 9 by 13 inch dish. I'm going to add just a splash more of our avocado oil and I'll brush that around to grease our pan just to make sure that our cake releases easily. Most of the time with other cakes, when I'm going to be removing the cake from the pan to say stack layers, I like to do parchment paper on the bottom and then greasing as well as flouring the sides of the pan, but none of that is necessary with this recipe. We're literally going to serve this right in this dish. So after we grease our pan, we're just going to pour our batter in. Make sure to scrape all of that goodness into our baking dish. You don't want to miss out on any of this delicious cake. And then we'll use our spatula and just spread the cake batter around evenly. This is a thicker batter, so it won't naturally spread out evenly on its own. So just use your spatula and kind of push it over into the corners a little bit so that we'll have a nice even layer of cake. And now into our oven we go. We will bake this cake in our preheated oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. Whenever you're baking, I think it's always a good idea to set a timer for the lower amount of time. You can always give it more time if needed. So after our 30 minutes, we are going to check the doneness of our cake with a toothpick. And then if that toothpick comes out clean, there's no wet batter stuck to it, then our cake is good to go. And you can see here, our toothpick is nice and clean. So we'll pull our cake out of the oven and we are going to set this out to let it cool completely before frosting it. The cooling part of this recipe is actually the part that takes the longest, so try to be patient. We don't want to dive into this hot cake yet. Do not attempt to frost a hot or even warm cake. Your frosting will just melt. Make sure you give it the full amount of time to cool. Once our cake is completely cooled, we are ready to make our cream cheese frosting. When making frosting, you want to use softened butter and cream cheese. So I let the butter sit out on the countertop at room temperature for about an hour or so. You'll know it's ready when you can kind of press a little dent into it easily with your finger. And then the same with the cream cheese. I have let this sit out as well for about an hour, so it will be nice and soft and easy to cream together. If you don't let these soften, you will end up with little lumps in your frosting, and we want it to be nice and smooth, right? So give it that time to soften. Then with a whisk attachment on our mixer, we are going to get these all whipped up together until they are nice and smoothed and creamed. Once they're all creamed together, you can't tell the butter from the cream cheese, then you are ready to add the rest of your ingredients. So the first thing we'll add is a little bit of sea salt. You might think salt in frosting? That sounds strange, but this tiny bit of salt, we're just using 1/8 of a teaspoon, is really going to balance out all of the sweetness really nicely. Next, we'll add a teaspoon of vanilla. And then we will be adding 3 cups of powdered sugar. I like to just add 1 cup at a time to start and start mixing it in gradually. If you add all 3 cups of powdered sugar all at once, you will end up with a slight cloud of powdered sugar in your kitchen. So start it 1 cup at a time on a low speed. Once it is mostly mixed in, you can go ahead and add your next cup. Do yourself a favor though and lower the mixing bowl to add your powdered sugar. It will be so much easier. There we go. So back up, we're going to again turn this on, just mixing it enough to moisten and combine in most of that powdered sugar before adding our 3rd cup. All right, and cup number 3 going in. I just adore cream cheese frosting. It is probably one of my favorite things in the whole world when it comes to sweets. All right, now once that powdered sugar is mostly mixed in, take a quick second, grab a rubber spatula, and we are going to scrape down the sides. Get all that powdered sugar that is stuck to the sides of your bowl and get it scraped down in there so it can mix into your frosting. All right, and one more time, we're turning this bad boy back on, away we go. And then once all this sugar is mixed in, we're just gonna be turning this speed up a little bit. We're on a medium speed to give it a good whipped frosting texture. We want it to be creamy, but also light and fluffy. So just a minute or 2 here is all you need. All right, and that is it. Our frosting is ready to go. This recipe also makes the perfect amount of frosting for our cake. I don't know if you've ever had a cake where it seemed like there wasn't enough frosting, you wanted more for the amount of cake that was there. This frosting gives you a nice thick layer. It is really the perfect amount. And of course, the best thing about making your own cake is that you get to lick the frosting. Cream cheese frosting is the most amazing thing on the planet. Favorite frosting ever. Hands down. We're done. All right, so we're ready to frost our cake. I've had mine sitting in the fridge now, so I've had it covered up with some plastic wrap, so I will just remove that. We're just going to slap this frosting on the top there, and then we will just easily spread it around with our spatula, and that's it. We're good to go. Again, see how easy this cake is to make. There's no layers you have to worry about tipping over. This is as easy as it gets. Anyone can do this, and it comes out amazing. Everyone will think you are the best baker ever. Just putting the finishing touches on, this part is sort of like raking a Zen garden to me. So relaxing, so satisfying. And oh, would you look at that? More frosting to lick. It's so good. I don't think it gets any better than cream cheese frosting. Let me know in the comments what your favorite kind of frosting is. All right. So other things to put cream cheese frosting on. Pumpkin spice cake, carrot cake. We put cream cheese icing on our pumpkin spice cinnamon rolls, or any cinnamon rolls. What else do you add? What else do you add cream cheese frosting to? Let me know in the comments what else we can use this amazing frosting on. Now this cake may not be much to look at in the pan, but trust me, once you slice into this puppy, everyone is going to want a piece. I'm gonna go a little savage here and cut a piece right out of the middle because that's my favorite part. How about you? Are you a middle piece or an edge piece? I am always a middle piece girl. I'm gonna cut a nice big piece for us because why not? We deserve it, right? And there she is. Isn't it beautiful? Our fluffy, moist pumpkin spice cake and that nice thick layer of our amazing cream cheese frosting on top. This cake is so, so good. If you want to dress this up just a little bit for serving, just grab that bottle of pumpkin pie spice and we're just gonna give it a little shake, just a little decoration to make it pop. And our pumpkin spice cake with cream cheese frosting is ready to serve. How amazing does that look? And trust me, it tastes just as good as it looks, if not better. I am so excited for this. First bite. You see how moist and fluffy that is? Do you see that? Oh my gosh, it's so good. This is just as amazing as it was the first time. This is obviously a fail-proof recipe. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. I need a second bite. I'm done. No other recipes needed. This is it. And that's it, guys. That's how we make our now favorite pumpkin spice cake recipe with cream cheese frosting. If you enjoyed this recipe, hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to our Happily Home Cooking channel for more of our family's favorite recipes. And I wish you an amazing fall and happy home cooking.